All right, good morning, karibu sana to Morning Cafe this lovely Monday morning. It is the 16th of September 2024. My name is Freddy Ndemuli, flying solo this morning, but not to worry, I got everything covered for you, including all the dailies this morning. But before that, let's get to see what we have. And as far as our preparation for today is concerned, and I don't know why, but yes, we'll have to go to the other side. Yes, on State of the Nation, former cabinet ministers Kipruto Arap Kirwa will be with us this morning alongside Samuel Pogisio. These are former cabinet ministers in the Kibaki administration. That is a big discussion this morning on State of the Nation. A lot to talk about, including what happens with Kenya Kwanza. Yes, Kipruto Arap Kirwa and Samuel Pogisio will be in studio for State of the Nation. After that, being a Monday, do stand by for Monday Blitz, your Monday serving of weekend sports with Fred Arocho and Shutterboy. And of course, sports journalist Florence Ndungu will be joining the two gentlemen for that discussion. That will be coming on later on. But for now, let's take a look at the dailies this morning. Smart people do read the Star, and on the front page of the Star this morning, Gachagua skips Ruto events as fallout deepens. This is a big story. And yes, the big discussion into this week is what exactly is happening between the president and his deputy. The entire front page of the Star today with that story. We'll be back to take a look at that. Why Gachagua snapped Ruto, same exact story also on the front page of the People Daily. Yes, and I think I love this photo on the front page. The president, then an empty seat, and then Moses Kuria. What exactly does that mean? Matters Police, a dilemma of having convict for police boss. And yes, the continuing discussion about Gilbert Masengeli, the acting IG of police, and the conviction for contempt of court last Friday. The fact that he's supposed to serve a 6-month sentence, but he's yet to comply. Secret deals rock Ruto's regime. This is a continuation of the discussion 2 years since William Ruto took over. And that makes one of our biggest discussions today as well. And that very interesting photo of the president and an empty seat next to him. You really want to tell me no one, even his handlers, didn't know that Gachagua wasn't going to make it? Kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo kurasa wa mbele, Raila apasua ODM, and the image of, or rather picture of Raila Odinga with a crack in between the two factions of ODM as we stand, those who support ODM's involvement in government and those who oppose the same, led by James Orengo on the other side. What exactly happens with this party? Matters Business on the Business Daily this morning. How deleted emails, SMSs may derail NSSF bonds trade probe. So CMA fears evidence destroyed after leaked CBK letter. We'll be coming back to take a look at that as well. Let's go to regional matters. And there's the East African today. Dar abductions set off new push for law reforms. This is a problem that also features in Kenya, the fact that there are rampant abductions and disappearances of many people linked to politics as well. It's happening in Tanzania. It would appear that the situation in Tanzania is getting worse. So Tanzania's opposition wants President Samia to kickstart a review to entrench the Bill of Rights and spell out stiff penalties for perpetrators of extrajudicial killings and kidnappings. These are two words that are also very much used in Kenya: extrajudicial killings, disappearances, and abductions. The picture there of President William Ruto and his recent host in Germany. That's Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany. Come ye, all ye job seekers. Now, this is a very controversial discussion here in Kenya as well, because on one of the dailies it says that Germany has actually denied the existence of these jobs. What exactly is happening there? ESC boss Nduva, who's also Kenyan, wants partners to open skies. He says liberalization will not only make air travel easy, but also cheaper and promote regional trade. Meanwhile, in Sudan, Sudanese junta leader now seeks legitimacy. This is as far as a bigger regional daily is concerned, but let's take a look at the specific dailies, and we start off with the Daily Monitor in Uganda. This morning, the front page is a dedication, more or less an ode to President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who celebrated turning 80 years at the weekend. It was his birthday. He now joins a league of leaders in a class of their own. It also means that the head of state has served the nation as president for 38 years. Of the 80 years he has been alive, standing head and shoulders above all regional leaders. It means, yes, almost half his time here on earth has been as president. In 2 years' time, or 3 years' time, probably, half of it will be as president. And there are very many images of the president when he took over in 1986, in 1995, 2004, 2006, 2016, and now the latest 2024. And yes, still standing at 80, ni mzee wa region, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and the Daily Monitor, the cleanest front page in this region, pays tribute to this man. Still in Uganda, the New Vision steers clear of Museveni's birthday. Oh yeah, there's a picture there. Half the page, Museveni, President Museveni marks 80 years. And there's an image there of the president with the first lady touring someplace over the weekend. Yet the big story on the New Vision has to do with education, as always. Matters education always making it to the front page of dailies in Uganda. Term 3 school grants delayed over ghosts. So it's not just in Kenya where capitation and school fees, bursary for schools is delayed. Even in Uganda it happens. Learning institutions receive over 100 billion shillings per term. Ugandan money. If this was in Kenya, this would be enough for almost 2 terms. Other stories, Katanga trial expert explains DNA samples, and ex-MP Katuramu recounts kidney wars. Uganda also scooped an award at the China Tourism Expo. That's the front page of the New Vision. So what are they talking about in Tanzania this morning? Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi ukurasa wa mbele, maaskofu wang'aka. Asema wataka uchunguzi matukio ya watu kutekwa na kupotea. The same stories about abductions and disappearances as well as extrajudicial killings making it to the front page of Mwananchi. Walioshindwa kuyazuia wawajibike. Daktari Biteko watoa salamu za serikali akihimiza Watanzania kuvumiliana na kuheshimiana. Na hii kuna picha hapa ya maaskofu wa kanisa Katoliki wakiwa katika maandamano wakati wa misa na maadhimisho ya kilele cha kongamano la 5 la Ekaristi Takatifu. Yes. So yes, it was an event for the Catholic Church, but the big story from there matters abduction and receiving condemnation from the Catholic Church in Tanzania. On the New Vision, the Citizen, still in Tanzania, matters traffic, transport and infrastructure, how bus firms are adapting to competition from the SGR. And yes, the newly launched Tanzanian SGR is making a huge difference for the public bus travel for many Tanzanians. Many owners of buses are feeling the heat of the popularity of the electric trains operating between Dar es Salaam and Morogoro. Asema mpaka Moro and Dodoma. Major bus companies are now scrambling to expand their networks. And of course, there are so many other routes that they can take. That's a big story on this front page of the Citizen today. The other story given prominence, meet the dream team that makes it all happen. This is giving tribute to the team of journalists, the main newsroom that gives you the Citizen. And that's the front page of the Citizen and other dailies today. Let's take a look at the weather situation before we come back to the cartoons later. So yes, we start off with Homa Bay, and it's a bit hot. 21 degrees as we speak. This is at 9 minutes past 6. Promises to be a very sunny day in Homa Bay. Quite a hot day. 21 as we speak. It could get as high as 29 degrees Celsius in high afternoon later today. And it promises to be this kind of weather this entire week. Only changing at the weekend when thunderstorms are expected in some areas within Homa Bay. So if you are in Homa Bay or you intend to visit Homa Bay today or this week, expect sunny intervals for the better part of the day. In West Pokot, wow, quite cold this morning, but also promises to be a sunny day. 14 degrees Celsius as we speak. The moon is out, a bit cold as we speak, but it promises to get way hotter, maxing at about 26 degrees Celsius later in the afternoon. So yes, and this will be the trend throughout this week. No indication of any possibility of rain throughout the week. Sunny, but a bit cloudy with highs of 26, 27 degrees throughout the week. That's in the North Rift. West Pokot will be having Samuel Pogisio comes from that area later on. Let's cross over down south to Mombasa. And this is perfect holiday weather for any person hoping to go there. 24 degrees Celsius as we speak right now. A bit cloudy, but it promises to get sunny throughout the day. Highs of 28. It maxes there for the better part of the afternoon. Actually, from 11 a.m. all the way up to 4 p.m., the weather will stick at 28 degrees Celsius. It is the same trend that is expected this week. Maximum temperatures of 29 degrees Celsius in Mombasa. Finally, let's come back to the city. Is it really in the sun? Yes, the city in the sun. So 13 degrees right now, but not to worry. The temperatures promise to get high as 26 degrees later in the afternoon, gradually building up that way. It will be a bit cloudy in the morning, but don't worry. Hakuna maswala ya mvua. Probably later in the week, Thursday and Friday, there could be an indication of possibility of rain, but as of now, expect sunny intervals for the better part of the day, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Once it gets to Thursday and Friday, things might change. But for now, we're comfortable. And that's the weather situation as we speak right now. We'll come back later on to take a look at the traffic situation. But for now, let's take a look at Today in History.
Today in History, 16th September, International Day for the Preservation of the Ozone Layer. Recognized globally on September 16th, this day raises awareness about the protection of the ozone layer, which has implications for Africa's environmental sustainability and global climate change efforts.
Let's now come back and take a look at the big headlines and the front pages of all our dailies locally. Right, and we start off with a star this morning. Gachagua skips Ruto events, fallout deepens, and this is a big story this entire week. I don't know why. From this weekend, the president just came back from Germany. Now, he went to Nyeri, which is a home county, of the deputy president, but the deputy president was in the next county of Kirinyaga. So, DP conspicuously missing at airport. He was not even present to meet his boss when he came back from that trip in Germany. And in Nyeri, his home county, where President attended church service yesterday, we have a picture there of the president with the AIPCA Archbishop Samson Mudhuri during the launch of the AIPCA Central Western Archdiocese. The next picture is of the deputy president with faithful at Our Lady of Sorrows Baricho Catholic Parish in Kirinyaga, which is about 40 kilometers away from Nyeri. So we wonder... he just couldn't find time for his boss. This divorce, it comes only a week after the drama that where we saw 69 MPs endorse C.S. Kindiki as the kingpin wa Mlima. It's a big story there on the front page, and it's going to form the biggest discussion this week. Other quick highlights on this front page of the Star. You are more likely to catch TB infection in bars than in church. That's according to Cambridge researchers. It's there. You can read that story on page 3. How knowledge of Chinese language is opening up job opportunities for Kenyans, and this conversation about job opportunities abroad, whether in China or in Germany, as the president says, continues there on page 21. And stop meddling in Kakamega affairs, Barasa tells ODM chiefs after summoned threats. On the back page of this paper, this is the Star. Struggle is real. Kogalo hope hang in the balance after falling 3-0 to Egyptians. Al Ali coach wants Gor to brace for more shock. Yes, they lost to the Egyptian side. That's a Star today. And let's take a look at the People Daily this morning. Same story as on the front page of the Star. The People Daily, why Gachagua snubbed Ruto. So it goes to explain why and what exactly happened. Clearly, the president and his team were not expecting the deputy president to miss out. Hence, the picture with an empty seat next to the president, just in case the deputy president decides to show up, as he has done so many times before. But this time round, he was a no-show. But the governor for Nyeri County was there present. And they say divorce loading. They're using the same kind of words on the front page of the Star. Divorce loading is also there on the front page of the People Daily. Forces familiar with DP's thinking reveal that second in command feels slighted by push by the president's Mount Kenya allies to hoist Kindiki. That is there on the People Daily. There on the top strip of this paper, 50 officers in trouble over Gen Z deaths and Raila 2023 demos. The story is on page 8 of the People Daily. You can read that. On this right-hand strip of this paper, big storm in Kupet over aborted strike, and how governors spent 4.8 billion shillings on garbage. This is according to, and lawyers, garbage and lawyers. Yeah. Anyway, but the big story remains why Gachagua snubbed Ruto on the People Daily. That's a Standard now. We do have the physical copy here as well. Dilemma of having convict for police boss is a big story on the front page. So they steer clear of, they still make mention of the deputy president and his, the fact that he did not show up for the president's events. But now we have a picture there on the bottom strip of the Standard of the president and the Nyeri governor Mutahi Kahiga. To the president, loyalty supersedes competence. So they still steer clear of the fact that the deputy president skipped the president's story. This story is more about a special report on 2 years of William Ruto as president. So 2 years into his administration, President William Ruto has shown he rewards loyalty, sometimes at the expense of merit. And this special report has been covered extensively on pages 6, 7, and 8 of the Standard. But the main story is on the acting IG of police. The country is waiting to see if acting Inspector General will serve his prison sentence as directed by the courts, even as lawyers and activists mull other options should he decide to ignore the order. He says he'll appeal the decision. That story is on page 4. But there's a quote here. The LSK president, Faith Odhiambo, says the court has jurisdiction over the acting IG and there are other constitutional avenues we will consider. Meanwhile, activist Caleb Wanga from the Usalama group, he says this is a complex issue. The IG's office is under scrutiny. Someone might file a case to declare him unfit for office. Now, the story about jobs abroad features on the front page of the Standard, and it's a question: what jobs? Germany apparently denies a Ruto 250,000 jobs deal. So this story is on page 2, whereas Kenya and Germany signed a labor deal that will see Kenyans get jobs in Europe. The number being touted is incorrect, according to German officials. The story is on page 2. So they say confusion has rocked President William Ruto's jobs promise abroad, just hours after his return from Germany, where he indicated that he had secured an agreement for job seekers. So the issue here is about the numbers. Are they really 250,000? Now, the other story that has not featured on the front page, but one that we will be talking about, is also on page 2 of the Standard, and has to do with the reconstitution of the IEBC. IEBC reconstitution tops Parliament agenda when sittings resume this week. So members of the National Assembly, they are resuming their sittings tomorrow after a month-long recess, with both the National Assembly and the Senate having full entry. So the reconstitution of the IEBC and consolidation of various bursaries into one fund are some of the key assignments awaiting the two houses. That's the Standard. And on the back page, they talk about Arsenal's heroics at the weekend. Gabriel strikes as Arsenal heat rival Spurs with sucker punch in North London derby. And yes, there are other results that we don't need to mention. I think the most notable is Liverpool losing to Nottingham Forest. It's also there on the back page of the Standard. So for EPL lovers, you can read more of the analysis. But remember, at 8 a.m. this morning, Monday Blitz, Fred Arocho Shutterboy will be here for more analysis on that football weekend. On the Daily Nation this morning, secret deals rock Ruto's regime. They say controversial big money deals brokered behind a cloud of secrecy by President William Ruto's administration, including the Indian conglomerate Adani Group's bid to take over the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, have sparked protests and spawned court cases with potential dire ramifications for Kenyan taxpayers. This is a special report on the 4th and 5th pages of the Daily Nation today. And there are questions. Kenya Kwanza government pushed tenders without conducting public participation. This is exactly 2 years after President William Ruto took oath of office and swore to defend this constitution that guarantees and provides for public participation. Now, that famous picture there of the president sitting next to an empty chair also makes it to the front page of the Daily Nation today. And this is quite embarrassing. Where is the DP? The question they ask. Gachagua skips president's church function in Nyeri. Si wangetoa tu hiyo kiti hapo. It looks really bad. But yeah, that was a situation in Nyeri yesterday. Meanwhile, the deputy president was only 40 kilometers away in Kirinyaga County, presiding over a different event at another church. The other story given prominence on the front page is on the bottom of the Daily Nation. Matters education, why universities and schools are in turmoil. So learning in public universities is set to be disrupted this week when lecturers begin a strike over a pay dispute, adding to the chaos in the education sector, already rocked by grievances from learners and the instructors. Two unions have instructed 30,000 members in public universities and constituent colleges to boycott duty from Wednesday. So lecturers strike starting this Wednesday is a big story. On the back page of the Daily Nation, matters sports, local football. Al Ahly exposed Gore's frailties on big stage, and this match was played yesterday at the Nyayo National Stadium. Al Ahly managing to score 3 goals against Kogalo. Yes, they make mention of Arsenal on the top strip. Gabriel's bullet header ends Arsenal victory at Spurs in feisty North London derby. Many people had written off Arsenal ahead of that game, saying, oh, Arsenal haitaweza, oh, sijui nini. Well, that was the Arsenal. They're called the Gunners for a reason. On Taifa Leo, Raila apasua ODM, ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Wanaopinga ndoa kati ya Raila na Ruto wanahisi ushirikiano wa siasa ni usaliti wa raia na demokrasia ya nchini. Na wanaopinga ni kina nani? Wako hapa kwenye upande wa kushoto wa picha hii ya Raila Odinga iliyopasuka katikati. Ni kama vile James Orengo, gavana wa Siaya, Edwin Sifuna, seneta wa Nairobi, MP Babu Wino, Ruth Odinga bani dadake Raila, Caleb Amisi na Nabii Nabwera. Wanaounga ODM kwa upande mwingine ni Oburu Odinga, ndugu yake mkuu Raila Odinga, Simba Arati, gavana wa Kisii, gavana wa Homa Bay Gladys Wanga, Junet Mohamed, Timothy Bosire na George Aladwa. So ndio habari kuu pale, masuala ya siasa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo asubuhi ya leo. Vidokezo zaidi pale chini, masuala ya siasa pia. Ngilu aruka story, ataunga Kalonzo uchaguzi wa 2027. Nakumbuka kuna gazeti ambazo wiki jana ziliangazia kuwa pengine Ngilu angetaka kujiunga na serikali, akisema Kalonzo anafaa kuunga Ruto pia kama vile Raila alifanya, lakini sasa anasema hapana. Asema ipo haja kwa Kalonzo kujiimarisha ili avae viatu vya Raila na kukomboa Kenya. Habari hii unaweza isoma kwenye ukurasa wa pili wa gazeti hili. Kwingineko, spika ahidi kuharakisha uundwaji IEBC. Wetangula ahidi kutoa kipaumbele kwa swala hilo bunge la kitaifa linaporejea hapo kesho Jumanne. Mwanajeshi anaswa msako wa dawa Pwani, pia ni habari ambayo iko kwenye ukurasa wa 4 wa gazeti hili. Ujerumani yakana itaajiri wa Kenya 250,000, na hii ni baada ya ziara ya Rais Ruto nchini Ujerumani kulibuka dai idadi hiyo ya vijana wangeajiriwa. The controversies around the number being stated. Is it exactly 250,000 or less? Masuala ya spoti kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Arsenal yatwanga Spurs ngoto derby ya London ligini. I like that headline on Taifa Leo. Tuangazie masuala ya biashara na gazeti ni People Daily. How deleted emails, SMSs may derail NSSF bonds trade probe. This is a business daily today. Samahani kama nilisema People Daily. Ni business daily, masuala ya biashara. Wasema a leaked central bank letter on suspected irregular trading of the National Social Security Fund government bonds could derail investigations into the matter amid fears the suspects may have moved to destroy some key evidence. So investigators at CMA admit delays in confiscating communication gadgets such as mobile phones, computers and laptops from the suspects to retrieve emails, texts and WhatsApp messages sent ahead of the irregular trading in the NSSF bonds. That's a big story there. The other story, SACCO loans deposits gap hit 76 billion on increased borrowing. So people are saving, yes, but now they are borrowing more against their savings. Loans issued by SACCOs continue to outpace members' deposits in the year to December 2023. That's the other story on the front page of the Business Daily. Quick highlights on the side. State suspends tolling plan to map new roads. M-Kopa order to pay taxes in Kenya. Treasury fails to disburse 153 billion shillings to various, including transfers to counties and pensions. And Saiton promoters seek to stop Superior Homes stake sale. These are matters business on the front page of the Business Daily. And that, in a nutshell, is what many people are talking about in as far as local dailies are concerned today. Let's take a look at the caricatures this morning. And we start off with the Standard Matters Sports. What we've been talking about, Egyptian side Al Ahly triumphant against Gor Mahia, and these are the league leaders in Kenya. Gor Mahia wako hapo chini, wamevaa green, wamekaa chini kwenye turf. Al Ahly are CAF champions. These are Champions League, and they say, see you in Cairo in a week's time for more trumping. This is after they scored 3 goals past Gor Mahia. But then, misplaced priorities. Gor Mahia sawa wanasema, aki I swear, Ingwe watalipia hii makosa. So Ingwe wametokea wapi? Surely. Yeah? Anyway, that's a cartoon on the Standard today. On the Daily Nation, maswala ya Murima. Kuna surveyors pale wanapanga kweli kweli using ballots. Wanapima tu, watadivide wapi. This is a 2027 matrix of the mountain. Wanasema kata hapa katikati. Yes, so the plan is to divide the mountain according to this cartoon. Aiga. On the Daily Nation today. And on the People Daily, matters police, what features on the front page of the Standard. Acting IG of police standing there next to a prison. Commentator says it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for Masengeli to enter prison. So yes, many people are skeptical whether or not acting IG Gilbert Masengeli will actually comply with the order to present himself for imprisonment after he was sentenced to 6 months in prison. Of course, the court gave a relief to him, and he was given 7 days to appear before the court. I know we didn't have the Star cartoon, but let me just look at it and tell you the story. It's about the jobs, the promise of jobs abroad to Kenyan youth. So President William Ruto there, a caricature of him at the airport opening the door and saying, jobs for young people. I said I'll create jobs. I didn't specify where. So yes, employment creation, but not in Kenya, uko nje. He didn't say where. Ni ukweli, did he promise he'll create them here? That's a cartoon on the Star today. Yes, so these are the major discussion points. The fact that Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua skipped the president's meeting in his home county of Nyeri. Also the fact that university lecturers are going on strike on Wednesday, as well as we continue looking at the 2 years of President Ruto's regime. Remember, last Friday marked exactly 2 years since he took oath of office. And finally, just before we take a break, let's take a look at the traffic situation in Nairobi. And at least by now it's picking up. Mambo imechemka pale Thika Road on this Utalii Drift. You can actually see where the red starts. So you come down very well past Outer Ring Road, past the KCA Monetary Studies Survey, but then once you get down the Utali Drift, right next to the Mathare Hospital, the snarl-up starts there, and it's a long red all the way into that interchange that leads you either towards Muranga Road or Forest Road. So yes, do expect if you're coming from areas of Kiambu Road or Thika Road to spend quite some time on this section of the road. It's building nicely. Juja Road 2 looking a bit busy. Areas next to the Moi Air Base Academy Primary School, heading towards town. Jogoo Road 2 at this time of day looking busy. A very long stretch of red from Makadara all the way past Mbotela, all the way to Likoni Road. That whole section is red, meaning it is very slow once you come from that side of Buruburu heading towards the City Stadium roundabout. But once you get there, once you get past that, it gets a bit easier, but then starts building up on Landis Road next to Mudhurwa and the Machakos bus station. Haile Selassie Avenue as you get into town, busy on both sides of the road. Watu wa Marikiti pale. And there's that debate about Marikiti and what exactly will happen to it, with the county government seeking to move that to another place. Let's move to the southern side of the Nairobi and Mombasa Road. The expressway looking good all the way past Airtel Center, Capital Center, the Nyayo Stadium, and looking good at least on the expressway. Okay, chungulia kule chini, there's a bit of traffic, but nothing to worry about. Langata Road 2 all the way from the bypass Uhuru Gardens down to T-Mall roundabout looking good. Mbagathi Way also looking good. Ngong Road, shida tu ni pale Adams Arcade na pengine Prestige Plaza. Ambayo niende Mombasa lakini sijui. Mombasa iko mbali. Mombasa. Nasikia Mombasa kuna maswala kule. What's happening in Mombasa? What's happening in Mombasa in as far as traffic is concerned? Which section of Mombasa are we talking about? Hapa Likoni hapa kuna, I don't see anything major. It's taking time to load. Usually at Likoni ferry sahi kuna traffic hapa. Lifungua Dongo Kundu nasikia sasa watu wengi hawakuji hapa because getting to South Coast you have to come all the way to the Likoni ferry, but it's looking okay this morning. So traffic, yes, in Nairobi it's building up as at 6:32 this morning. So matters State of the Nation after the break. I'll be having ministers Kipruto Rapkiro and Samuel Pugisio from the Kibaki administration in studio for the State of the Nation. Do stand by for that. And of course, later on, Monday Blitz, your Monday serving of weekend sports with Feda Rocho and Shatterboy coming your way at 8 a.m. Be sure to be part of us through our social media pages throughout our conversations this morning on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Let's take a break now. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
All right, welcome back. You're watching State of the Nation. This is the Morning Cafe right here at TV47. My name is Fred Indimuli. Time for us to take a look at the big headlines this morning. Of course, you do realize that there's a lot of mention of what happened yesterday in Nyeri with the Deputy President missing from or skipping the President's event. And that's what features on the front page of the Star. Gachagua skips Ruto event. Fallout deepens. That image of an empty chair next to President William Ruto in Nyeri yesterday also features on the front page of The Standard. It is there on the front page of the People Daily. They say why Gachagua snubbed Ruto and an empty chair there. And they've used the same image on The Standard. I think I was talking about the Daily Nation on The Standard, but this time the president seated alongside Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga. It features on other dailies as well. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning. Our usual panelists every Monday. Samuel Pogisio, ICT Minister in the Kibaki II administration, and Kipruto Rapkirwa, Agriculture Minister in the Kibaki I administration. Gentlemen, good morning. Karibuni sana.
Good morning to you, Fred.
Yes, we continue looking at the 2 years of President William Ruto's administration. Friday last week, 13th of September, marked exactly 2 years after he took oath of office. He was away in Germany, so there was not much to talk about in terms of his activities then. But most of the media houses have spent the entire weekend focused on that. But before we get to that, let's talk about what happened yesterday. And we've seen continuously that the deterioration of the relationship between the president and his deputy. Now, the president came back from Germany at the weekend. The deputy president, according to the dailies, was not present at the airport to meet his boss. Then President William Ruto proceeded to Nyeri yesterday for a church event, and that is the home county of his deputy. His deputy, meanwhile, was 40 kilometers away in the neighboring county of Kirinyaga. And now the photos we're seeing on the front pages are of the president and an empty chair next to him. And that picture speaks volumes, Bwana Pogisio. 3 years to go till 2027. This probably shows an escalation of the wrangling between the two gentlemen.
Yep. I think, Fred, you can tell that things are not okay. And escalation is going to happen more and more and more. Because, I mean, how do you show that you have differed unless you actually don't show up?
Yet there was an attempt between the two gentlemen to actually paint a picture that everything was well. So far, the deputy president kept on insisting, my boss, I still respect my boss, will still work with my boss, but doing it so publicly.
Yeah, you need to speak to Kipruto Rapkirwa. Oh, those kind of things. I think, anyway, the situation is getting worse. This is exactly what happened a year before the last election, maybe 2 years actually before. This one has started a bit early, and we don't know where it's going to head. Having been in Nyeri, everything must have been deliberate to test the waters about the relationship. So, so many things have contributed to this. One of them is that the president has used another number of MPs to attack the deputy president. And so the deputy president really has realized that this is a real war. And so what are the tactics of a war? You have to show it. I think he's trying to also show that he's a man of his own. And Murima is his constituency, generally. And that he can actually walk out. If you want, I can walk out. I can show you exactly what you're showing me. And I think it is completely unveiled. What you see is a real fight. People like Ichung'wa and now everybody else has formed another loyalty. The loyalty that they have now has been to identify with another person within the mountain, who is Minister Kindiki, and so make sure that they can outshine the deputy president. Deputy president is a person who will not allow that to happen, and so he will show, he will act, he will probably just be defiant, and I think that's what he has done. And I think if you were the deputy president of this country, you would probably do the same, because you have been reduced to a level where your members can actually insult you. The way they name him, different names and so on and so on, make it look like he's not a serious politician. But now he wants to show he's a serious politician. He wants to show that he can mobilize Murima, and to the place where nobody should joke with him. And I think now the line has been drawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
But both of you gentlemen have been in government and have been in such seats quite close to the head of state at one point or another. And you know that any presidential event, there's a lot of meticulous planning that goes behind it. Issues of communication, even between the handlers of the second in command and those of the president, there's a lot of communication between the two. Definitely the team handling this event must have been aware or had an idea whether or not the deputy president would show up. Having an empty seat next to the president is also communication from the president himself or his handlers that this is really happening, that I am here, but this person has failed to show up. What is the president trying to tell us?
Well, it's very interesting. When I saw the two teams, one in Mount Kenya East, saying they prefer the Minister for Interior to the deputy president, and the other one in Nyandarua, which of course was rocked with a lot of controversy, including the fact that some of the money that was destined for that function was not all delivered. Only one quarter was delivered, which is, of course, akin to the situation here in Kenya, that many projects are not delivered on the basis of corruption. So corruption has taken another form. And so when I saw that, when I got wind of this, I realized the two gentlemen actually are telling us the truth, that they are not together. And the earlier they do that, the better it is for us, for us to know that there will be two guys in the ballot. One, President William Ruto, and his deputy will also be in the ballot, but not the same ballot. Same ballot, of course, but for the same position, which for me, I think is very useful if it is done early enough for us to be able to draw the lineup and know exactly how the next political game plan will be. But the way I know in politics, the current president cannot afford to ignore the deputy and expect that he's going to run away with the mountain. The deputy president, if he was not popular at the beginning of time, has been able to gather a lot of momentum and in terms of sympathy. And that momentum, I hope he will be able to translate into tangible votes, because at times when people sympathize with you, you must also demonstrate that you are worth the salt. But on a more deeper note, we've said here, Fred, that there are only 3 vice presidents who enjoyed their tenure of office. The late Wamalwa, Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, and Mzee Mudi Awori, just because they were serving under gentlemen. The rest of the vice presidents and deputy presidents have not been sitting pretty. So what we may need to do is that we need to redefine this position of deputy, both in the county governments and also in the national government. Perhaps we may need to say, if you are a deputy, for example, if I was to go to Pokot and Mheshimiwa is running for governor and I am his deputy, I should know from the beginning that I will not succeed him immediately. There should be a haters period where I may need to cool my shoes before I run again.
Okay.
That will allow us to be able to see the full effect of a pair that they pretend at the beginning of time that they are working together. In the same county, Pokot, I remember the former deputy to Professor Lonyangapo decided to go to America for such a long period, and he came back to oppose his boss. So my fear is that I think Gachagua will be in the next ballot as a candidate himself.
Yeah. It was a very busy weekend for both the president and the deputy. Let's just watch how these things transpired as covered by our team of journalists. First, the president speaking in Nyeri and saying that Kenya Kwanza administration will deliver, as well as the deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, talking about what happens in the region.
President William Ruto has told of critics who have cast doubt on his ability to deliver on the Kenya Kwanza promises, revealing that he's working towards changing the face of Kenya's capital, Nairobi, by building more affordable houses and eradicating slums around the city.
I have no doubt in my mind we are going to change Kenya. Haitafanyika kama instant coffee. Haitafanyika ati kimiujiza, lakini itafanyika na mpango. Haiwezi kuwa city ya Nairobi ndio mahali watu wanaishi katika makao ya matope, hakuna maji, hakuna stima, hakuna choo, hakuna nini. No, we have to change it.
The president spoke in Nairobi during a church service at the Stewart Pentecostal Church, where he revealed that approximately 50,000 houses are to be constructed around the city of Nairobi.
Tayari kandarasi ambayo tuko nayo in different parts of the city ni karibu manyumba 50,000. Mimi niliwaambia watu wa Nairobi, hii Nairobi, almost 60% ya watu wa Nairobi wanaishi katika vitongoji duni. We must change that.
Kama governor na kushukuru juu umenishikilia mkono. There's so much that we are doing that is courtesy of the president. Hii wiki ambayo inakuja, in fact in a few days, because we've discussed with you, shida ya maji ambayo imekuwa Nairobi inaenda kukamilika.
Ruto noted that his government has set aside 1 billion shillings for the construction of schools and more classrooms in different schools in Nairobi.
Tayari mimi nimeshatoa kama national government shilingi bilioni 1 ya kutengeneza mashule. Katika audit yetu tunaona ya kwamba kuna ukosefu ya madarasa 5,000 katika Nairobi City. So we must build more classrooms to accommodate more children in the city of Nairobi.
After Kenya and Germany signed a labor mobility agreement, the president revealed that a recruitment exercise for the first batch of Germany-bound will be held on September 27, 2024.
Wakati nilisema ya kwamba tutakuwa na nafasi ya vijana kwenda Kenya, kutoka Kenya kwenda Ujerumani, wengine wanisema sisemi ukweli. Tarehe 27 ambaye ni kama wiki 2 zijazo, kutakuwa na recruitment ya kwanza ya vijana wa Kenya watakao kwenda kufanya kazi Ujerumani.
Chichi Josephine, TV 47.
That was before the president headed to Nyeri for another event yesterday. But meanwhile, the deputy president spoke about Mount Kenya politics, his pet subject. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Although his boss was in his home county of Nyeri, Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua opted to fellowship in the neighboring county of Kirinyaga, joining congregants of the Catholic Diocese of Baricho in marking 100 years of faith. The Deputy President was on a brand with his usual gospel, the unity of the Mount Kenya region.
Na tupunguze siasa mingi ile imekuja hapa kwetu kwa mlima. Nikiangalia maeneo mengine yote hakuna shida, kumenyamaza.
The Murima Unity Gospel has not been received unanimously. A section of Mount Kenya legislators in the now famous Nyahururu Declaration have publicly declared to work with Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki as their link with the executive arm of government. In response to this, DP Gachagua urged residents to keep record of these happenings and use these to vote wisely in the next elections.
Deputy President apewe nafasi afanye kazi ya Governor afanye kazi yake, Senator afanye kazi yake, MPs wafanye kazi yake. Kila mtu ako na kazi yake. Wakati ukifika, watu watarudi kwa hii raia.
Despite the high stakes and political bickering that has so far threatened to erupt the mountain, Gachagua maintained he will not be distracted by the political noise, stating he has a mandate to fulfill to the people with his focus of ensuring the mountain is united.
As far as I know, uchaguzi uliisha. Ama iko uchaguzi? The next election is 2027.
Na wakati wa siasa ikifika, sisi tutakuja huku chini tuongee maneno ya siasa.
Legislators early to the second in command did not shy away from calling out their colleagues and castigating them for attempting to undo Gachagua's efforts of uniting the vote-rich region.
Kama sisi timu inajiita ya Murima region, kwamba tuombe Mungu atupe amani na tukae na umoja.
Na sisi tunaomba kila kiongozi ambaye yako hapa amechaguliwa mlima aheshimu rigiji.
Tuona mtu akikwambia ati tutafute kiongozi mwingine wa mlima na tuko na Rigathi Gachagua, mwambie rudi nyuma.
As the political rivalry continues to simmer within the region, what remains to be seen is the next move by the deputy president to quell what looks like the surging rebellion by a section of leaders from the region and preventing the mountain's west and east glaciers from melting down. Mwege William, TV 47.
High-octane politics from the Mount Kenya region coming from this past weekend. But Bwana Pogisho, listening to Bwana Kirwa, he talks about the deputy president's political prospects going forward, that yes, he'll be on the ballot, just not necessarily on the same ballot as his current boss. But then again, it means when it comes to politics, and you're both politicians, power is taken, it's never given. And there are those who suggest that the deputy president should probably take a back step and wait for 2027. But there is a risk if he does that. What he's doing right now probably is the best survival mode for a person in such a position, don't you think?
I think that the deputy president has some kind of experience that most politicians don't have. If you rose up from being a DO in DC during the KANU days, Moi days, you have a higher chance of understanding dynamics. And I think he does. I think the deputy president has been trained to deal with controversy. He's been trained to understand the situations in the country. If you listen to him talking, I think it looks like he knows what he wants. He might not personally be on the ballot, but he can organize and create a force enough with other politicians and allow someone in that camp to run for president. But he would be very important in the pushover. I think Mlima, as they say, the Mlima people, the mountain, does not necessarily have to produce a candidate, by the way, but they can support a candidate and allow that candidate to be the next president of this country. That's why, as you can see, they have to divide the mountain. And you can see the other group is trying to show that we can actually divide this mountain so that if ever you want to run for president, you'll run with half of the mountain or quarter of the mountain and so on. But I think, I do believe that the deputy president has matured enough in his political life and his career that he will understand that things now are, as Chinua Achebe said, fall apart. The center can no longer hold, which means he understands that it's survival time. He has to go and run around, doesn't have to show up in meetings where the president is, because he's take his own stand and be a leader in his mountain. By the way, it's very important that you are a leader of the mountain. Very important in this country. The mountain manages and contributes a lot to who wins in this country. And so if he wants to control that, so that whatever mechanisms or whatever machinations are coming, political, somebody must look for him. And I think it's very important that he shows, at least, he resonates with the mountain, make sure that the mountain identifies him as their leader. And he has a hard task now of trying to get the rest of the members of parliament, whatever it is, to come around him or create another group around himself.
Okay. And of course, many people, the concern is actually about the 3 years to go to 2027. We've only had 2 years of this administration, and it feels like 10 years already. So with this kind of back and forth between the president and his deputy, one wonders what could happen over the next 3 years if 2 years has gotten us to where we are. And one wonders, could there be something else that happen so that we don't have to experience this for the next 3 years?
Well, my projection is that should Raila win the AU position as the AU chair of the commission, there'll be an impeachment attempt on the position of the deputy president. That impeachment may spell doom to the entire Kenya Kwanza administration, because I'm sure he's not going to sit pretty. He's himself going to also to mobilize a counter team to see what happens to his boss. While I would not really wish that the president does make that kind of attempt, I know in his own mind, he's a man who wants to win every battle at the expense of losing the people. The second issue that I look at, just to concur with the Honorable Pogisho, is that the deputy president has a chance either to be a kingmaker or attempt to be a king himself. In that case, we might have a runoff, because you cannot expect anybody to get 50% when we know Kenya Kwanza won the last election thanks to 47% of the votes coming from the mountain. And if Gachagua is going to be in the ballot, it may create a situation where there is a runoff. And perhaps during the runoff, he can make a choice himself who to support or who should support him for purposes of squaring it out with his own boss. While that may be is a bit murky, and I sympathize with Kenyans because it was very apparent from the beginning. Even these Mount Kenya MPs did not support him. I remember I happened to have been in that meeting and have the privilege to know exactly what happened. Majority of them supported Kindiki. So this is something just to draw back to the battle lines that they had drawn at that particular time. It's the following day on Sunday that the president, in his own wisdom, decided to support Gachagua and announce him as his running mate. But what I know and what I suspect is that all these schemes are being done by his boss.
Okay.
Because I think the boss has always wanted to win everything and anything that comes before him. And this actually may be his Waterloo, playing around with the mountain. And you know, the mountain, when it moves, never comes back. I know, because substantially, we've been in this country and we live among them. And I have the privilege of having many people from the mountain in my constituency that I represented for quite some time. So my fear is that it is very clear that the two may not work together. If they were to work together, it will just be a repetition of the situation, and I wish they don't work together.
Sustaining this relationship over the next 3 years is almost impossible.
It is not tenable. It's not tenable.
Okay.
It's just like a marriage that is supposed to fall apart, but you say, for the sake of children, let's stay together.
For the sake of the children.
Yeah.
Interesting politics from the Mount Kenya region. And of course, this image or the picture of the president with an empty seat right next to him. What exactly does that mean going forward? Is the president trying to say that he has no assistant? Well, those are the pictures on the front pages today. Let's take a break. When we come back, we focus now on the 2 years of President William Ruto's administration. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side. We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Freddie Ndimuli. Now, I'm still in studio with the ministers Samuel Pugisio and Kipruto Rapkirwa from the Kibaki administration for this conversation today. Just before the break, we focused a bit on the Mount Kenya politics, but now we want to look at the biggest conversation since Friday, On Friday, 13th September, last week, it marked exactly 2 years since President William Ruto took oath of office. Now, 2 years on, the whole weekend, many media houses, all newspapers were just talking about what have we gotten since he took over office. On the front page of the Standard, down there, they've used a picture of the president in Nyeri yesterday with the Nyeri governor, but the question, or rather the headline reads, "To the president, loyalty supersedes competence." And this is a special report on pages 6, 7, and 8 of the Standard this morning. It talks about Kenya Kwanza at 2. To Ruto, loyalty to friends, not competence, is main qualification. Bonapogisio, in as far as appointments are concerned, you must agree that the president is very loyal to his friends, and to the peer, he puts a lot of premium on that loyalty, as opposed to even the ability or competence of these people. Do you think is a weakness on the part of the president? And do you think it has done him any favors over the last 2 years?
For someone who is political, and the president is one of those people, political, who must achieve whatever he wants, loyalty is more important. And I think you can tell from very many positions it's offered to people who hardly qualify. Mm-hmm. But they helped him win the election. They probably funded the election, and you would just put them there. Even in cabinet, I mean, you would put them there because he would definitely control the cabinet anyway. So it doesn't matter for him. It's a different kind of administration where people planned from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. That because I funded you, or because I remember one guy who said, "What will you do? I mean, the president will not remove me from this position, even when they are absolutely unqualified to own that position." And that to me is a weakness in this administration, where meritocracy is not the plan. It's loyalty, political loyalty. One of the things that might do is create a very weak government. And we can already see that in some departments, actually, it is happening. It's a weak government. Some people have been put there who have no experience whatsoever. They can't handle government per se. I call this, I think last time I said, it's a transient approach to government. We're here for 5 years. Let's do what we must do. You occupy whatever you can occupy, like the Gen Zs would do. Occupy that space, take over that space. Don't even have to build the place, just occupy it. Carry whatever you can carry, and we're out of here. That is not a very good way to look at government. Government must be a continuum from this end, 1963, to whatever end it is. Okay. And I think what we have done as a country, we have killed what we used to call the public service, where you progress, you grow through the system, and we brought people who are going to last for 5 years and go. And I think that's what's going to be the undoing in this.
Including senior public servants.
Yeah. Public
Principal
servants.
secretaries.
Exactly. Principal secretaries, who are supposed to be permanent secretaries. Anyway, someone comes from anywhere, occupies the position of principal secretary, and because he has no connection with the past, he will struggle through the 5 years, and get out of there. But so we have a situation where we must go back to the Public Service Commission, say, what happened to somebody who was about to arrive at permanent secretary? Mm-hmm. And 5 years later, his age has come, it's gone. And so a lot of people will never reach there. The same thing with the Foreign Service, where we have occupied the whole space with politicians, ambassadors and so on. So you'll find somebody in the public service who was about to rise to the position of ambassador can no longer do that. You'll retire somewhere halfway. So people are going to be discouraged. There's going to be a go slow and create a weak government. So I do think that what the president needs to realize is do an audit of his government right now and realize that meritocracy is always the best option for any government. Put the right people, encourage the right people to rise to the system instead of just looking at the political situation.
Okay. It's interesting, Bonakiro, words that appear in language when it discusses this government, the issue of competence.
Yeah.
When Pogisio used the word weak government. And do you think, even beyond the people and the loyalists to the president, generally, the Kenya Kwanza administration under President William Ruto, those two words can be used, weak government, incompetent. Do you agree that these words are continuously being used to describe this administration?
Yeah, partly because the president himself has chosen to be a micromanager. A micromanager in the sense that he does not seem to believe, even in the team of loyal servants that are supposed to serve under him, he does not seem to believe in them. Of course, he's been in public saying that if I know more than you do in your various departments, then you have no use being there. This therefore demonstrates a person who in his own best of moments does not believe anybody else can do a better job. But I know in management is that you multiply your effort through the capacity of others. And when you appoint the right people in the right places, they will give you better results, especially if you give them some latitude or freedom. But this regime has not been doing that. They have been doing the opposite. Appoint somebody may be loyal to you, but if you don't allow somebody to breathe freely, that person is going to live under fear. And when somebody is under fear, the likelihood is that you will be waiting to hear what does the boss want instead of what is the right thing to do in this particular department. The second issue, of course, has been the issue of corruption. It seems corruption was admitted at the beginning of time. And when corruption does prevail, then everybody will be saying, yes, this position I'm holding, I don't know for how long am I going to hold. And therefore, let me make do with what I can get in the intervening period. But of course, the most and the worst of it all is lack of trust in the administration of the day. Today, if you are to do an opinion poll among many Kenyans, many of them, more than 80%, will say they don't trust this administration, starting with the president himself. Remember the 250,000 jobs that he was announcing, only for Germany to say that particular position does not exist. This is something that I do not know why those who advise the president don't tell him that some things can be done and we see them having been done, instead of announcing some things that may be the opposite of what is happening. But more important and fundamental, when it comes to serious management issues, you should not have a lot of pride in exporting your manpower. We have used money to train them. This is the manpower that you must be asking yourself, what is the policy position that I take care of those who are coming from TVETs, those who are coming from various training institutions, including various universities, so that I maximize on their potential. This export of skilled labor is actually a sign of poverty in terms of political thinking of the government of the day. No man should be proud that you train somebody in your farm, and when he is a very good tractor driver, you send him to your neighbor instead of using him in your own farm. It is a sign that some things are not right. And this administration is likely to run the risk of being said this is the worst administration that ever took place in Kenya.
Okay. And moving from that, because there has been a lot of criticism and upheaval, uprising against this administration. You have, Wanapugisio, you've been around for a while. You've seen all the 4 presidents before William Ruto. And one wonders, could this be the worst first 2 years of any presidency that we've seen in Kenya?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the first 2 years of Kenyatta administration were. I don't know what the first 2 years of Moi administration were. But look, there was excitement in Kenya.
There was a lot of hope.
There's a lot of hope, and I think we have been progressive in those in that situation where every president created as as I've said here before, hope is not a strategy. Hope is a product of some good things. So and now there's no hope. Right now, if you ask any Kenyan about hope, I don't know. I mean, every time I open up the newspaper, I look at how people are being auctioned in this country. I don't know whether people notice that. You look at what auctioneers are making more business than anything else in this country. So where's the hope in the people whose homes are being auctioned, whose businesses are being auctioned? So in 2 years of an administration, you're still sorting out how to balance your budget. You're still sorting out issues that are basic. The counties don't have enough money. They're not getting what was promised to them. And so if in 2 years you haven't sorted out, for example, in this country, the pending bills from successive years have not been sorted. And so as a result of that, people are being auctioned, you know. So I can say that this is probably in my many years of politics, this is probably the most difficult period for Kenya. And
could it be the worst first 2 years of any presidency?
I think the most difficult is the same as the worst 2 years, because every government that comes in, a new government comes in, gives hope to its people and excites people. But this is very depressing. It's a lot of depressed people right now. If you look at it, actually, a lot of mental health issues in this country now. So it may be related to what is universal, but I tell you, we're experiencing the hardest, the most difficult economic times right now. Very few people in this government, very few, are enjoying life, eating life with a big spoon. Yeah. I mean, you can't believe it, Fred, that while we are all suffering in a way, these guys can't travel, a lot of them cannot travel a short distance of 2 hours drive without flying there. So I mean, choppers have become like the vehicles of this government. And so that tells you there are few people who have taken everything that exists, and the rest of us don't have anything. So yeah, if you ask, I wouldn't say that and I'm doing well, whatever it is, because I can feel it. Waziri Kirwa can feel it. People in the village will write to you SMSs asking for 100 shillings, 200 shillings. This has never been before. Yeah. So we're in a most difficult situation that it requires a sitting, a demand by the whole country. Let's reason together. Where are we going if we continue like this? How are we going to survive?
Okay.
I think we need a national dialogue on how are we going to survive as a country.
But others may argue that probably we're being unfair to President William Ruto, that some of the problems this country faces were not necessarily as a direct result of him taking over. Some problems have existed from decades past. Do you agree with that, that probably 2 years is too soon for us to condemn this administration?
Well, perhaps when one does analyze the issues of this administration, one does it with a bit of looking back to the promises the president made. He had been a minister before, a member of parliament, deputy president for 10 years, and therefore some of the promises he was making, he must have been cognizant of the situation in the House. And therefore, he's being judged on his own template, that he promised a number of things that he's not able to fulfill. And instead of saying, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I took office on the basis of 1, 2, 3. But it is not possible to achieve all that. What we can achieve is 1, 2. The third one, perhaps if I get another chance, we may be able to achieve. And that is the issue of honesty. He was to be honest like that, but he continues to lie on top of another lie. He continues to promise where there is no need for him to make a promise. That creates what Mheshimiwa calls trust deficit. And when people don't trust you, they don't even, when you are telling them something, and I saw in Nairobi before he went to Germany, when he was trying to tell young men how to apply for certain jobs, how he was going to create fish industry on Nairobi River, I knew those are promises that may never take place. Yes, he may clean Nairobi River, but as to whether we are going to have some genuine fish that we can go to Nairobi River, fish, and take home for consumption is another story, because there is a lot of toxicity within the environment that Nairobi River does comprise. So it is not a problem of Kenyans. It is a problem the administration has visited on itself. Now, when you compound it with corruption that is evident almost every day, every deal, either is shrouded in some kind of mystery, and nobody is allowed to ask questions. When you ask questions, you are abducted, and you are giving the wrong answers to a serious problem of either management or political or integrity issue. You give different answers. That makes everybody feel this team was not ready for administration. They were ready just to make the former president look bad. And he has actually made him look so good that today, if Uhuru had a chance of running again against his own former deputy, Uhuru will be like an angel, because Uhuru never promised many things. Whatever he did, we know. Whatever he was not able to do, he never lamented on that, and he never blamed it on anybody. This is a government of excuses, false promises, and lack of integrity.
Okay.
That's what it is.
If you could give William Ruto anything, any accolades for the past 2 years, probably it would be in matters politics. His handling of local politics. In those 2 years, he's managed to ensure that he has total control of the Houses of Parliament. As far as passing any piece of legislation, he's been able to do that. He's been able to court support from even the opposition. And now, as we stand, even the second biggest party, ODM, the biggest opposition party, is more or less under his wing. That in itself, many pundits have talked about the need for that to happen, and they drew comparisons with President Mwai Kibaki in his first term, that he failed. Failure by President Mwai Kibaki to handle the politics of the time made him have a very difficult first term. Do you think that in as far as politics is concerned, President William Ruto has gotten it right in the last 2 years?
You cannot fault William Ruto on the political front. He has literally mastered Kenyan politics. He is now agreed that he will subdue himself, subject himself to a government of national unity, whatever you call it, a broad-based government. Even if you don't like it. I mean, this is how hard it is. A lot of his people, Kenya Kwanza people, are actually threatened by that move, and including the deputy president himself. Threatened by the move that now another group of people is coming, and they are occupying very prominent positions, and that they are likely to take over. I mean, they are likely to rise beyond those who fought for those positions, and that is his ingenuity. I mean, that guy, the president, has a survival. Is in the survival mode right now. So you can't tell the strength of a person who is in a survival mode. He's just trying to survive politically. That said, the the situation in the country is not stable. The country is not sitting pretty. The mountain is not steady, isn't it? At home in Rift Valley also, and people also are suffering, you know. So you find that he will spend more time now, every Sunday in church, and wherever possible, traveling around the country to try and communicate what he's trying to say. This thing about Germany was not the best thing, the best news. If we were very excited about German jobs, and now Germany is saying, what jobs? You know, if that story is what I'm reading.
The question there is about the number being touted, 250,000, exactly. Probably it's much less. Yeah.
And why would you even want to promise 250,000 jobs? That's a 250,000 jobs in one country. If you have 250,000 Kenyans in Germany, it's like we are the only country in the world. I mean, so why would we even talk about numbers like that?
He likes using numbers, whether it's money or people or jobs.
Yeah, the president is very skilled in promises. Whoever coached or advises him on promises has done a good job. Yeah.
What's your assessment of his handling of politics in the last 2 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he has tried, but of course, it is against the script that he gave us. He told us no handshake, there is no nusumukate, there is no cooperation, there is no merger, but exactly has done the opposite of all that he said before the election. That's where I fault him. But in terms of political survival, I think he's been giving wrong answers to the right questions. Because, I say that because when you look at what the GNCs were asking him, it was let's be more transparent, let's be more inclusive, let's have some measure of integrity. But instead, he has decided that now the only way you can do that, apart from the previous emasculation of parliament, is to bring the biggest party in the opposition to the government so that you silence any noises. But if I was to advise him, which I've been doing previously, is that this is a lull before a storm. And it was okay when Prime Minister Raila Odinga was still making a bit of threats, demonstrations, because that would give people hope. But the moment Raila and William Ruto are together, and as I've said before, they control 80% of national propaganda, the two of them put together. But you see, when that national propaganda is demystified, the next round of GNCs getting into the street is going to be something very big. And I would also want to advise him that if you combine the GNC, comprising between 5 to 8 million people, and the mountain comprising almost the same number, his future is doomed. Because the mountain does not announce. I know the people of the mountain will not make a lot of noise against you. They will look at you and listen to you, but they will have made their own decisions. You could see from the body language of those people who are in the church, including his own supporters and cronies, the body language was very clear that the mountain is shifting and the mountain is rumbling and the mountain is not at ease at all. And therefore, once the GNCs, and I still see in the social media, because now we've been forced to get into that space to understand the heartbeat of the nation. When you combine the mountain and the GNCs, politically, he has not done as well as he should. But thank God, because personally, I hated the situation where a sitting president is expelled out of State House. But whether he's going to have his own day during 2027, that is okay, because that will be the right of Kenyans to decide who becomes the next occupant of State House, whether it is he or somebody else.
2 years ago, Kenya Kwanza got into this administration on the promise of the better model, that's a bottom-up economic agenda, with the 5 key pillars: agriculture, MSMEs, ICT, superhighway, housing, and universal healthcare. Yet we see that all these pillars have encountered quite some huge challenges. Fertilizer in agriculture, MSMEs, the Hustler Fund is limping currently. ICT and e-government are still not yet there. Matters housing, and probably that's where they met a lot of the fight with the housing levy. UHC, the shift from NHIF to SHIF is still yet to be rolled out properly. There's still questions, there's still a lot of resistance on all these 5 key pillars. The president got an opportunity to rethink his strategy immediately after this upheaval by the Gen Zs that Bwana talks about. Do you think he took advantage or proper advantage of resetting his administration to focus or to try and change the trajectory in as far as the approach on all these key pillars that he had?
By the way, Fred, I don't even hear the people of Kenya Kwanza recapping those pillars, talk about those pillars. Anyway, in the
they talk about fertilizer.
Exactly. Well, really, the fertilizer, food production, as they say, but the bottom-up economic agenda, as they call it, nobody's talking about those pillars, whether they're in church or wherever. No one is talking about it. When you promise and promise and promise, people judge you on those promises. It becomes a situation where instead of dealing with the bottom-up issues, you're always defending yourself. And the last 2 years, the president has been defending himself. He's been on road trips defending himself. And if you listen to people on those road trips, you can tell that there is a trust deficit that my colleague said. The trust deficit is, your message is good, but can we trust it? The people who came out in the election of 2022 were very hopeful. Mm-hmm. You raise the hope of our people to the place where they didn't even mind how you won. They wanted you to win because of the way that you promised. Mm-hmm. And I think William Ruto had the highest hope in his message when he was campaigning to be president. And the message was, I'm going to do this in 6 months. I'm going to do this in 9 months. In exactly 3 months. Made sure it was short term. Well, 2 years have gone. And I tell you, if you promise people things in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, and then you turn that into days, you say in 30 days, in 90 days, it's the same thing, right? But now the guys have been keeping record of that. One of the areas where we have not done very well is in sports and in our stadia. And now I don't think we have a stadium that qualifies even for FIFA level. Or so you find that the best thing that we promised people was that young people are going to have the best stadia in this country. And then, of course, the farmers have suffered the fertilizer thing. The tea farmers are having problems. Coffee farmers are having problems. That's where the majority of the Kenyans are. That's where you would talk about bottom up. Mama Bogas struggling and so on. So I don't know. I just want to say that survival in politics is to kind of reach the most people with the right message and the message of hope. If you give them that, they'll support you. Mm-hmm. If you dash that, weak as they might be, they will leave you in the cold. They might not vote for you. Mm-hmm. And so the threat right now is 2 years have gone. How is the next 3 years? So the president must begin to reconstitute his advisors' team, because the team that he has worked with up to now have not given him the best advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that team include Parliament? Because if we may focus on Parliament's role and how it has served the performance of the Kenya Kwanza administration in the last 2 years, a lot of questions can be asked. Right now, as we speak, none of the budget-making processes generated by the Kenya Kwanza administration has been successful properly. Yeah. Even the Finance Act of 2023 is still in court after it had been rejected and declared unconstitutional. Yeah. He has been forced to reject the Finance Bill of 2024. That means none of his budget-making processes have been successful, which is basically the work of Parliament. Now we have the leader of majority basically acting as a court jester for the president around the country. Yeah. What role do you think Parliament has played, especially the National Assembly, in this kind of criticism we're giving President Ruto 2 years on?
Yes, Fred, allow me to celebrate our Senate. I think as they were questioning the Minister for Transport, I was proud of their questions, and the people were questioning, including people in Kenya Kwanza, like Senator of Nandi, Samson Cherargei. That is how democracy ought to be. But remember, this House started as opposition being the majority, because we had 177 members of parliament against, and then of course about 9 independents and so forth. But immediately they were emasculated by it being taken away, starting with UDM, Jubilee and other parties. And therefore Parliament, especially National Assembly, is no longer the house that ought to do the 3 things, including oversight. They are doing their own game of numbers and of course of money. So therefore the president himself has also not made things any better by almost wanting to do everything. Remember, before any finance or any decision is made by National Assembly, you'll call PG in the State House and almost literally give direction on how things should be done. So I blame members of parliament because they are not playing their rightful role, but also blame the president because he does not allow them to think. Remember, many members of parliament, especially from Mount Kenya region, they went around apologizing to their own constituents. The act of parliament, that the bill that they passed, they did not know the details of that bill. They had been told that it is good, only to realize that they were going to give a lot of taxes, hand over a lot of taxation to their farmers, including those who are dealing with crops and even livestock. This therefore tells you the president has also been doing a lot of misadventures in the sense that he does not allow other people to think. And if he was to blame Parliament or even National Assembly, it is he who has made the situation what it is. And more important is that some of the decisions, there is more propaganda than than facts. And if I was to give a job to President William Ruto, between being a campaign manager of any person and being a manager himself, I would actually not give him a job as a manager. I would give him a job as a campaign manager because he knows how to make things that are not true look true. Even this bottom-up agenda that he talked about passionately until some of us even believed that it was possible. But all the time I was questioning, how can you talk of bottom-up without defining the middle all the way to the apex of the pyramid? Because that's the only way you can have serious economic model. But if you are talking at the bottom and you do a lot of production, you do a lot of all these things, you are not telling us about manufacturing and finally the market. Because that is the final way for any farmer. It's not about just production. It should be production, market, and price. Those are very important things, so that at the end of the day, the farmer will ask, what is the cost of production? And after that, where will I get the market? And more important, is the market going to give me good return on investment? And for those who know basic economics, they tell me, in agriculture, you deal with volumes. And if you are doing 16% in terms of profit, you are doing well as a farmer.
Okay.
But many farmers today, they use, let's say, 2 million shillings. They end up with 1.5 million shillings. This therefore means you now have to eat into your capital, effectively cannibalizing. If you had a tractor trailer and a plow, the next season, once you finish plowing, you sell the plow to be able to take care of the rest of the processes with the hope that in December, when you harvest your maize, you'll buy a new plow for the following season. This is exactly what's happening in Kenya today.
Okay. Munapogisho, you've been a leader of majority in the Senate. You know exactly what that position does and how the relationship between that position, parliamentary leadership, and the executive, and how it plays out in parliament. You see the kind of parliamentary leadership we have today, especially in the National Assembly. What is your assessment of how that has contributed to the performance of William Ruto as president in the last 2 years?
Well, first of all, I think the MP for Kikuyu, which is the majority leader in the National Assembly, has done less as a majority leader and more as a campaigner, and is always around the president, even when Parliament's in session, and doesn't remember that the role of a majority leader is strictly in the legislature. There is a bit of linkage between him and that position and the executive, but it does not turn you into a member of the executive. And I think that's where sometimes I see my friend Ichung'wah forgets that he is a member of parliament. He is a legislator. He belongs to the other arm of government, but who must support, progress the agenda of the executive in parliament. He spends more time with the president, looking like he's part of that team, and which is probably how they have fashioned their own government. I don't fault them for that.
We don't see the leader of a majority in Senate doing the same, probably.
That's what I'm saying. This is probably how they're fashioned. Ichung'wah was always with the president during the campaign for this position in 2022. He has continued beyond being appointed. What I don't think he sees is that his colleague in the Senate, who is probably closer also to the president, is not on that rooftop thing that goes on. But you see, everybody has a way of working. I mean, when you're a chief whip, for example, in the old days, because the position was not this one, it was a whip who was very powerful at that time. You would only know that you are related to the executive when there was a crisis, and that you had to mobilize people to support the government. And I think that Ichung'wah has probably now gained another job, which is no longer majority leader, but now he's become what do I call him now? That his role is to fight the deputy president. If you are a majority leader and you're already dividing your supporters into those who support Mr. Kindiki and those who support the deputy president, you are likely to have a difficult time managing the numbers in parliament for the votes. And that's what a majority leader mostly does. I don't know how much ODM will support Ichung'wah in his campaign. But if ODM votes as the opposition or with the opposition, Ichung'wah has a divided house. And he will have a difficulty trying to get the vote through. And this is a very critical moment right now. So if I were the president today, I would tell Ichung'wah, mind your business. Go back to the National Assembly and take care of the votes there. Just get out of this controversy. Because as a majority leader, yours is to try and win as many votes in the House as possible.
Not be divisive.
Not to divide them. Yeah.
Bonakiro, your take on the role of parliamentary leadership in this?
Yeah.
Yeah. The president definitely should have depended on parliament to do the right thing, especially in the budget making process, that the Finance Act of 2023 should have been watertight enough not to encounter any legal hurdles. The Finance Bill of 2024 should have been done in such a way that public participation was conducted conclusively to avoid the kind of upheaval we saw. That could be seen as failure that emanated from the side of the National Assembly, and by extension, failed the president as well.
Yeah, I know every budget process must go through various organs of government, starting, of course, in our system, it used to be the Minister of Finance does make proposals, and upon making those proposals, will bring to the cabinet, and the cabinet will ventilate on a number of them. And upon ventilation by the cabinet, then the papers are forwarded to the National Assembly in the budget proposals, and discussions in the National Assembly are allowed to be free, starting with the various stages all the way to the committee stage. And if all those processes are allowed to be free, critical amendments will be made, and those amendments will assist to take the pulse rate of the public, so that public participation, which is now a constitutional matter, should be reflected in the outcome. But remember, public participation was lacking in 2023-2024 budget, and even in 2024 and 2025 budget, it was lacking. Lacking in the sense that it was ignored. Members of the public brought their proposals, made their suggestions, but those suggestions were ignored. And that is what actually drove the country to almost a situation of going over the cliff. This therefore means that, yes, we may blame National Assembly, but it still goes back to the president, because I'm sure the president was aware of every stage. He himself, having been a member of parliament, having been a minister, having been a deputy president, and therefore none of those stages should he have been able to ignore. He should have been able to be clear and make it reflect the wishes of the people. But of course, the arrogance has gone down in terms of public discourse. But in terms of the reality, this regime still believes that they have what it takes, and they don't care about the public opinion. They seem to think that, yes, when they were given an election, it was a ticket to do anything and everything, and almost do as if this is a private enterprise as a nation. Look at the decisions they have made, whether it is about energy sector, whether it's about the Adani at the airport. They are making those decisions knowing very well that those decisions are not in consonant with the public thinking. And if they were respecting the public, which they ought to, as servants of the people, they would not have been able to make those decisions almost at variance with the general thinking of Kenyans.
And as we probably get closer to the end of the show, there's a issue of compliance to the rule of law and the Constitution, because the president swore on the 13th of September that he will abide by the Constitution and will protect the same. Now, on page 2 of the Daily Nation, of the Standard, they talk about Parliament resuming its sittings this week, and the biggest agenda is a reconstitution of the IEBC. That is just one. There's so many violations which have happened because of a lack of IEBC, in the boundaries review and the by-elections that are still hanging. All this is on the president's desk. There's also what is on the front page of Standard today, and that's an acting police IG who has decided to blatantly ignore court orders. He's in contempt of 7 court orders, and he has been convicted, and there's a lot of skepticism on whether or not this punishment will go his way. In as far as the rule of law and this presidency and how it has handled the constitution. What is your assessment?
This is the time to test whether the president is serious about the rule of law. He speaks a lot about the rule of law. In his inaugural speech when he was elected, he spoke a lot about the rule of law. This country is going to be. So we hope that this is a time for him to speak up on it, beginning with the acting IG, for example. Going into the next election without constituting or reconstituting the IBC is going to be, it's absolutely against the Constitution. So everybody who is in government has sworn to uphold the Constitution. And it is a matter of time before we begin to realize the crisis. A lot of IDs, even just identity cards. There's a crisis there in the ID section. Passports, there's a crisis there. Those are all, part and parcel of elections, And then now there's no board, there's no ICB commission. And the process was supposed to have begun and nothing is moving. And then you have law enforcement. Law enforcement, the police. The highest person in the police right now is this Masengeli. So all law-abiding citizens are watching this space and asking, part of the trust deficit, can the president be trusted on this? Can he really now that there is a convict heading the police force, literally, according to the law, by the way, Masengeli should be in jail by now. He should be in jail next week, or whenever it is. He's supposed to report, take himself there. But that's not the most, for me, that's not the biggest violation it's big, but it's not the biggest. The biggest violation is if you cannot quickly process. There are many by-elections that should be held already. People are lacking representation because they should have been held already, but there's no IEBC. I don't know how many there, but they're there. But also the very fact that the confidence of our people is 3 years towards another election, the process of getting voters registered, especially the younger generation. I don't know whether this is a tactic to stop the younger people from getting onto the roll, on getting into the register. Or I don't understand it, because this should really be the priority. So we look at it. One of the things we've discussed today is how the majority leader in the National Assembly should be focusing on his job. And that is the job he should be doing from next week. From this week, when there is job. He should start by making sure that IEBC is back on track. He should start by identifying and advising the president about this police issue, because the Constitution is a test for the three arms of government. It's a test for the judiciary. It's a test for the legislature and also for the executive. So let's see how it goes. I like to suggest that that I've suggested before, that the president removes or sacks his team of advisors and replace them with people who can tell him the truth.
Bonakirwa, and as far as the rule of law and upholding the Constitution, how has the president performed?
Well, the president, the first lie that he made is to promise that his deputy will not be frustrated the way he was frustrated by the former regime. And that was not in keeping with protocol of your predecessor. You see, even if you have some dirty linen, you don't wash it when the visitors have arrived. you keep it, or if you have to air it, you air it behind the house. But you don't bring to the front of the house during the wedding. That was a lie that he himself has proven that he never meant that story. Of course, he also promised that there shall not be abductions and extrajudicial killing. Those have taken place, and even today, there are many Kenyans who have not been able to find their children, their loved ones, because nobody knows. We are told there was some Subaru, they were taken away. The issue of IG Masengeli also being almost a criminal on the run is also a demonstration of this regime not keeping in order whatever is happening. I do not know. In fact, I would be very keen if there was somebody who can talk to Masengeli to tell us why has he decided to be obstinate to the extent that he does not believe that the court does exist. And when you are asked by a court of law, you appear, even if you are innocent, you appear for purposes of demonstrating you are a good citizen. And I would want to advise Masengeli, because I think this public space, we should act as advisors to officers in government, that such a thing will carry on even beyond his retirement. That when he was in office, this is how he behaved. At times, your reputation in your office assists you to retire honorably. But if, let's say, when you have retired, you are told of fake fertilizer, you will not be very happy, because you would have said, okay, I wish I had done better. But all said and done, I don't think the president does respect the rule of law. He just talks about it, but he does not respect that. And it's very clear, not because he wears counter suit, that he's actually a dictator. Whether you like it or not, President William Ruto is a dictator. And the team of advisors Mheshimiwa is talking about, he should just spend time every morning. We advise him for free. We advise him that the economy is not doing well. We advise him that don't be telling our children to go to Dubai, to go to Australia, to go to Germany. Create the jobs at home, because we train people so that we give them jobs for this economy to improve. You see, in the next 2050, almost 2/3 of the working people will be in Africa. And we need to retool those skills so that when they are now controlling the world in terms of the workforce, they should be controlling at the very optimal level that the returns will come back to Africa. You see, Fred, the poverty of Africa is very clear, that for every $1 that gets here, $7 take a flight. Now, during colonial time, Africa was net importer of food. Today, we are net exporter of food. Now we are net importer of food. 25% of the food that we consume in Africa comes from the rest of the world. These are factors we must rethink, and we must retool ourselves to make sure that we are able to capture the imagination of all Kenyans and make optimal use of their capacity and their brains.
Okay. Final words. Of course, the assumption is that we all as Kenyans want the very best for the president. We'd want the government to work. If you got the opportunity to face the president today, what would you tell him he should do going forward for this administration to actually better serve Kenyans over the next 3 years? Final part.
I would ask the president, I would say, for the first time, take a break. Retreat with some very good people and have a look at this country right now and see how you can restart building trust and confidence in this country and become vulnerable to your people. Allow your people to see that you really meant well for them. That will take somebody who will say, okay, I want to go and take a break, look at the mirror, discuss with people who can tell me the truth. And then there's a lot of apologies to make to the people. people will definitely understand. If you say, that was all campaign, but I want us to make this country work right.
Okay.
So I don't know whether we have the capacity. That's if I were to meet him.
Yes, if you are.
Of course, if I were to meet him.
If you were to meet the president today, Bwana Kirwa, what would you tell?
I will tell him to be more transparent in the decisions that he makes. I will tell him to respect Kenyans, and the Kenyans are not as gullible as he thinks. Kenyans have made their decision that the current president, one, he lies. Two, he has no apologies to make. Three, he's a specialist in believing in his own story, even when the story is false. Because I don't think the president does not know that what he's been telling us is a lot of falsehood. And finally, I will tell him to go to church and even don't talk when you are there. Listen to the priest and go home and reflect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kipruto Rapkirwa, Agriculture Minister in the Kibaki 1 administration, and Samuel Pogisio, ICT Minister in the Kibaki 2 administration, also served as Senate Majority Leader. Our panelists this morning helping us understand the big headlines, and of course, as we continue to take a look at the 2 years of William Ruto as president, that will continue being the big conversation this week. Of course, the picture with an empty seat next to the president continues to dominate the front pages today. Where was the deputy president? Why was he not in Nyeri with his boss? That has